This is English shorthand dictation number 123 and the dictation speed is 140 words per minute. Ready? Start. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, I would like to take you back to 2008 when the arbitrage, derivatives and leverage-driven economic meltdown completely devastated the global economic order. You had banks and financial institutions around the world which went under. You had banks which had established global reputations and they had to shut shop overnight. Here in India, over a period of 18 years, you built such a sound regulatory system that not a single Indian financial institution collapsed. Not a single Indian bank went under, whether it was in the private sector or in the public sector. This was at a point in time when, for the first time around the world, the economy contracted by 1.3%. After the Second World War, it was the first such occasion when the global economy ever contracted, when 62 million people in Asia alone went below the poverty line as a result of the economic meltdown. India, in terms of its regulation, stood out as the beacon of something which needs to be emulated even by the developed economies of the world. Now, allow me to come to the genesis of this bill and demystify the legalese which surround it. The bill has been explained very succinctly by our Honorable Finance Minister. As the Finance Minister very rightly pointed out, they are for regulators in the financial sector. You have the Securities and Exchange Board of India, which looks at capital market. You have the Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority of India, which looks at the insurance sector. You have the Pension Fund Regulatory and Development Authority, which looks at the development of pension funds. And you have the Reserve Bank of India, which looks at the banking sector as a whole. The Honourable Member had actually raised a very relevant question with regard to what should be the role of a central bank in a liberalized economy. I would just like to take my Honourable colleague back to a speech which the Finance Minister had delivered after he presented his first budget to the Board of Governors of the Reserve Bank of India. And he said that there is a need to reform the function of the central bank. Since that is not the subject of the debate today, I would not delve deeper into it. Over the last 18 years, the complexity of financial products has increased. You have financial products which in part have a certain mutual fund component to it. You have financial products which have a certain insurance component to it. Now, when you have a financial product which is a hybrid, having an insurance component and a financial component to it, who will be the regulator? Theoretically, you can do this hair splitting, but practically when you come into the market to have a split jurisdiction over a single product, it is going to very badly impact on the efficacy of that product and on the confidence which the investing public has in that particular product. Therefore, there is a need to work out a mechanism as to how different jurisdictions which have a bearing on a particular product can be harmonized so that the investing public has the confidence and regulation continues to remain robust so that the confidence in the Indian security market does not deteriorate. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, the Finance Minister explained as to what triggered off this particular legislation. In April, the Securities and Exchange Board of India came out with an order which said that 14 insurance companies would not be allowed to sell the unit-linked productivity schemes. The next day, the Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority came out with another order which said that the directions of Securities and Exchange Board of India should not be followed and these 14 insurance companies can go on functioning and selling these products. Now, where does that leave the investing public? Here, it is not a question of regulators competing with each other. As I pointed out, it reflects the maturity of the Indian market that both the regulators want to exercise jurisdiction to protect the investing public. But if there is a conflict of interest, how is that going to be harmonized? Now, my honorable friend raised a very interesting point. He said that there is a court order, and if the government was to follow the court order, the matter would be reconciled and there would possibly be no need to come out with this legislation. Please allow me to point out just two things. The first is that all court orders are appealable, and in a dynamic security market, decisions have not only to be taken promptly but have to be taken more than promptly. At times, intervention is required on the spot in order to ensure that the markets do not start tumbling and people do not lose money. This prolonged litigation does not suit the health of the economy. The second more important thing is that there is a Supreme Court order which goes back to 1997, and the Supreme Court order very clearly lays down a mechanism that in case there is a conflict between the public sector undertakings, rather than coming to court, the public sector undertakings should first go to a committee of the government which consists of the cabinet secretary and a couple of other secretaries to the government of India. They should try and resolve the dispute amongst themselves. If the dispute cannot be resolved, they can come to the Supreme Court of India. The Supreme Court itself has told the public sector undertakings to not come to the court on any smallest of occasion. But what do you do in the case of regulators? Here are regulators who are empowered by acts of parliament. Regulators whose independence has been guaranteed by legislation passed by this house embody and embed that independence. Therefore, if you have to reconcile the dispute between regulators, obviously you have to legislate, and that is precisely what the finance minister has done today. He has brought a bill before this house which provides for the mechanism wherein a committee has been proposed in this legislation. Mr. Deputy Speaker, Sir, if any difference of opinion arises with regard to what is really the character of a financial instrument, then there is a committee which would consist of the finance minister, the governor of the Reserve Bank, the secretary in the Department of Economic Affairs, the chairperson of Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority, the chairman of Securities and Exchange Board of India, and the chairperson of Pension Fund Regulatory and Development Authority, who would sit down and resolve that dispute. I do not understand as to where the whole conception of a super regulator really comes in. My esteemed colleague raised a very interesting question which really goes to the heart of Indian democracy. It is the question of integrity. No legislation, howsoever robust it might be, howsoever sound it might be, whatsoever loopholes it may plug, can ever be a substitute for the integrity of the person who is charged with the responsibility of implementing it. If you have a person in a seat of office who has a vested interest, then that is a democratic casualty and the nation has to pay the price. The nation has to learn to put proper people in proper jobs so that the responsibility can be discharged with efficaciousness, with a certain sense of discretion which a job as sensitive as this entails. In this house, the question of the super regulator has been brought up. Though it does not pertain to this bill, it brings to bear all these aspects as this bill has provided an occasion to raise this matter. If you go back to the economic crisis of 2008, all the developed Western economies which bore the onslaught or which were the victims of the domino effect of this financial crisis had very well regulated structures. They had very robust regulatory bodies in the financial sector. Then why did the economic meltdown take place? Why were the regulators not able to discharge their responsibilities? The answer is that each regulator had a very vertical focus. He was looking at his very narrow domain of responsibility. There was nobody stepping back and looking at the macroeconomic picture and trying to plug the loopholes which existed between those regulatory mechanisms.